Hey,
How's it going?
good, good, good. Trying to shit my whiteboards in there.
All right. Um, just me, you, and Phil right now.
Great.
But attendees will start joining momentarily. And yeah, we got a couple people. Or
You're holding people in the wait. You're holding people in the waiting room.
no, the webinar has started. Because
Okay.
you weren't panelists, I couldn't let you into the pre-session.
Okay. So this part will cut out of the recording.
Yes.
Okay. So is everyone's not in the waiting room, they're coming in, or you haven't let them in, you just let me in.
No, they're the waiting room is off now, so people joining will just join right now.
Okay. Sounds great.
Great.
I'm gonna turn off my video. And then are you gonna demote me to a attendee?
Um, yeah, I can. Just so there's less things on the screen.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds great. Okay. Have a great time. See you guys.
Yep.
Thanks, see you, Phil.
Yeah, Barrett, thanks for doing this. We're gonna give it a little bit as people filter in.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, no problem.
yeah, excited to chat.
Yeah, I smashed my toe last week so bad. I dropped I didn't drop a whole, what do you call it, like an ammo box fell out of the back of my truck
Oh,
and hit me on my bare big toe, and it like almost cut the whole toe in half. So I'm sitting here and I just almost rolled over it again, and I'm like, oh God, not a great way to start. But I couldn't believe how painful it was. It was like the worst thing.
yeah, those
So
boxes can be really heavy.
yeah, especially when you're just like not really expecting to have it fall on. Like that they're sharp too, so the corner just smacked right on the top of my toe, and just like
Oh,
almost felt like my toe was gonna explode. It's terrible.
well, gives you time to sit down and
And
relax,
relax and work.
work.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we'll get it kicked off in just a few minutes.
Sure.
Uh, yeah, obviously with this being a stealth company, um, a lot of people are going into it blind. They're not sure exactly what to expect.
Yeah. Well, there's a long story behind the name too, which is kind of interesting.
I'm
So,
excited to hear it.
yeah, it'll be
We'll wait until
story.
we get started. Yeah, I'm just gonna do some last minute items and then we'll get going.
Sounds good.
All right, as people still filter in, um, we'll get things kicked off. All right. Barrett, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
How you doing?
Oh, good. Thanks for having me on the show or the webinar. It's fun. I haven't talked about this really publicly at all, so this is kind of my first jump into like discussing some of my work that I've been doing. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm excited. Yeah, one thing that I noticed, before doing this is, they say to be famous is to have your own Wikipedia page, and you have quite an interesting one. Uh, internet entrepreneur, security researcher, and former hacker. So that's fun. To get things kicked off, why don't you just give us a little background of yourself and your journey and how you ended up here?
Oh boy, it's a long story. They did write a book about my early part of my career called Fatal System Error by Joseph Min. Um, but yeah, you know what I did? I started in high school a Unix shell service. So basically, what I was doing is um, selling a Unix account, an account on my server for $5 a month. And people wanted to pay for that because there's different features and stuff. And it was like pre-cloud, so it was like kind of the first real cloud service, I guess, back in the day, or kind of the earliest kind of view of what cloud would kind of turn into. And in high school, at 1,000 users, paying $5 a month, that's 5,000 a month, which was pretty good for me. And oddly enough, it barely paid the bills because back then bandwidth was pretty expensive. But oddly enough, back then it was called Doxxnet because my hacker handle was Dox, and it was way before doxing was a term. I don't even think I'm affiliated with it at all, but it just kind of happened to like that term became reappropriated, and doxing became something pretty nasty. But it's my name, it's my handle, and I own it. So the rest of everyone else can go screw themselves. Um, so what would happen back then, though, is I would get denial of service attacks. Like one of my customers would piss off somebody else on internet relay chat, and then that other person would just blast my server. And if my server goes down, I had to issue refunds, and so I got really well tuned into how to defend my server from denial of service attacks, and then I started getting better and better and better at it. And then I ended up writing a paper on DDoS, and it was like presented it at SANS long, long time ago. And it was like a whole room full of bankers and stuff like that. And I was like, this could happen to you guys. And they all started laughing. They're like, oh, ha, ha, ha. Who's going to attack our bank? No one's going to do that. Ha, 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 ha. This is what kids do to kids. I'm like, kids can do it then to kids, and they're going to do it to banks. And so eventually that turned into a business. I started a company called Prolexic. So I grew up kind of as a hacker kid. I think one of the bigger claims to fame that I had when I was pre-18 was I took down AOL for a while. I found a little loophole where you can actually delete domains, and I didn't think it would work, and I was like, no way in hell this will work, and I deleted AOL.com, like the domain. And so that was a big mess. And sadly enough, I ended up working for the people that were working at AOL later on down in my career, and I'm like, oh, that was me. I'm sorry. but but yeah, as I turned 18, I went into security and worked for a company in LA called Network Presence. And we worked with TIS, Trusted Information Systems, and worked on this new thing called a firewall and all that kind of stuff. Eventually, I started Prolexic, which was the first DDoS defense service. The weird part, though, is my clients were, offshore gambling sites, because those were the sites that were getting attacked. Those were the sites that were getting the most nasty stuff happening to them, and they were getting extorted by the Russians. And so they needed protection. And turns out my business was in the protection business. So we immediately overnight I had dozens of clients, revenue, and all the nightmare of building a giant cloud service while it's under attack with clients. So that service that grew up and got pretty pretty interesting, and we sold that over time. It eventually found its way to Akamai, which became their whole security thing. After that, I was kind of like burnt out from security because it was just every day something was going wrong. And I teamed up with a guy named Perry Wu, and he was a VC in Silicon Valley, and I built a company with him called Bit Gravity. And Bit Gravity was we kind of looked at it, we're like Akamai is kind of like this giant um, yeah, monopoly on content delivery, and maybe there's a space for another content delivery network. And we looked at it, analyzed it, and I'm like, well, video seems to be the thing that's going to be the big thing next on the internet. Video is going to be the thing. So we built a video-centric CDN, large object delivery, and one of our first clients was YouTube. And those guys came to us with like really specific needs. They're like, hey, look, we do progressive download video. It's really expensive. Can you lower our costs? And then I'm like, well, maybe we could lower your costs, but we could do it like really creatively. And there's a lot of people hit play and then they wait for the video to download to get to the spot that they want to see. And so you're wasting all that bandwidth in between point A and point B. What if we just figured out where the timeline is in that little bar and then kind of tell the server to rewrite the header and allow people to skip through the video without downloading it? And then what if we, slowed the video down so it's not like the full bandwidth, but match it to the bit rate? And so we started doing all this thing, and all of a sudden video became really affordable to do on the internet. So we sold that company to Tata Communications, and that became Tata CDN. Worked on another company called XDN, which got sold to Fortinet. Then we did DefenseNet, which was kind of a reboot of Prolexic. Like, well, 20 years later, what would we do different? And that company lasted 18 months. We sold it to F5, and then we did Photography, which was just recently sold to Vectra AI. So anyway, I've got a long history of doing these types of things, so it's kind of fun.
Quite interesting. I feel honored to be chatting with a man who took down AOL for a moment. That's pretty impressive.
It was scary. I mean, I went to high school and I sat and they had the TV on and CNN like was on the thing. It's like AOL down. I'm like, nah, that wasn't me. No way.
Wow. Okay. Well, can you explain what you got going on now? Give us a walkthrough. What is Doxxnet?
Well, let me give you a little background. So I've been doing protocol research for a long time, and I've always been really fascinated with weird use cases of the internet, specifically like how do people communicate when they're not allowed to? Like how do people like discuss? How do people get on the internet when, like, for example, in Cuba, there was a long period of time where there's no internet connectivity, and how did they communicate? And back then they had this thing called like the weekly packet, or El Paquete Semana. And basically what it was is like you would record all your requests that you want to do on a read-write CD-ROM disk. You shove it under your front porch, doormat. Somebody would pick it up, and at the end of the week, all your requests were written onto the disk, and you get the disk. So really slow internet, basically, but it worked. It worked well enough to where they were able to communicate, email, all kinds of stuff through that. So I was like, wow, that's pretty fascinating. How do people communicate? So we have this internet now that's kind of really bifurcated in a lot of places. Like you've got, people in China that built this great firewall, China, which fascinatingly enough, somebody just dumped all the source code to it to me recently. So I've been picking through that. That's been fascinating. But the ability to communicate in different countries isn't the same as ours. In the United States, we've like free reign of the internet pretty much. And I think that that's got its good qualities and its bad qualities, but it's not up for me to decide that. So I started working on a project about a year and a half ago called Darkflare. And the idea was, okay, you have all these people on the internet that are kind of like stuck behind these firewalls or censorship and things like that. What's the one thing that a country can't block or shouldn't block? And I kind of got to the point where I'm like, well, CDNs, big CDNs, and specifically probably Cloudflare can't be blocked. So I wonder if you can fake a web server on one side and a client on the other side and make it look like you're doing like an origin web server, JPEGs and images and stuff. But instead you're shoving inside the images packet data, and you could actually use Cloudflare as a network across, across their vast deployment. And it can't be blocked because they need, countries need Cloudflare to function for e-commerce and all that kind of stuff. So if we could shovel TCP through Cloudflare, then maybe that would be cool. So I wrote the program that did that. It got on Hacker News and took off and became a big deal. And then all of a sudden I set up a Discord chat channel, and people from like Iran and like different parts of China started popping in and saying, thank you. I'm on the internet, the real internet. It's really cool. This is awesome. And, some of these people are adults, and this is the first time they've actually connected to the unfiltered internet. And so I'm like, I'm onto something here. This is really interesting. There's like a need for communications to like kind of be a little bit, it's a little bit risky because you're kind of going against the norm of, nation states. But at the same time, there's a need for this. And so I realized that it wasn't just people getting little pinholes through these things, but they wanted full network connectivity, and it needed to be easier. And so I'm like, this is the time where I need to build a VPN company, and a real one, not like these strange companies that are in like Panama that are kind of like fly by night type of things, but an actual real ground up, um, write all the code myself VPN. And so that's kind of how I landed at Doxxnet. I revived the old name from high school and decided, hey, this is going to be my journey for a while. And so the idea behind Doxxnet is to build a VPN that, first of all, is super easy to use, but second of all, has firewall piercing technology, has anti-censorship technology, and has it also built in spoofing technology. So you can actually change your phone's GPS coordinates through the VPN, which is kind of cool. So some pretty neat stuff. And it's I think kind of a freedom of speech tool more than anything. So that's kind of where I started. And then I was like, well, how do I protect the users? How do I make sure that this is actually going to be something that really, really um, focuses on the protection of people while also providing all these cool features and stuff. So there's like a lot of thinking involved in just getting to the point where there's no usernames or passwords. There's no, the sign up procedure is more like creating a Bitcoin wallet where you get recovery codes and things like that. And yeah, so that's kind of the beginning of it. And then I'm like, well, it'd be really interesting if all the nodes that I start building can mesh into each other and can cross communicate. So if you're on the network in Japan and you communicate to somebody in Zurich, it doesn't go across the usual internet. It goes across an encrypted backplane that's all meshed. So you never really kind of come in or out of the VPN. You go into the VPN, but you don't go back out. So yeah, there's whole sites inside there. So the most analogous thing is the intranet, for corporations. There's like .state farm or something like that. You connect to the corporate backbone, and you've got this whole intranet type of thing. That's never really been available to a consumer before. So I'm like, well, I'll just create my own domain, docs, and I'll create domain registration inside there, and I'll create PKI, where you can actually have signed certificates for that whole network. And then all of a sudden you can host full websites in there. So there's search.docs when you're connected in. And that gets you to DuckDuckGo. And but you never actually go to the internet to use that application. It's like fully hosted within the VPN. So that's a lot of the thinking behind it, and that's kind of where I started. And there's a lot to do. So far, I'm a one-man band. I've written the entire thing myself. So it's been painful, to say the least. Like it takes quite a bit of your health because you're sitting there for like 12 hours a day programming, but and you forget to eat and things like that. But I find that that kind of stuff is actually pretty fun because you do some pretty cool work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, the changing of your GPS just through the VPN, um, that seems like a very big deal. What are some of the use cases for that? What are the opportunities here?
Well, I think with the GPS stuff, it's like people are sick of being tracked for one. So it's that is kind of fun. Like I always have my phone connected in like Europe and and I forget that the VPN's on after a while and like I'll go to a store and like it's like trying to sell me stuff in euros and things like that. But the a lot of people use it just to get out of jurisdictions or get out of, get onto video content that they want. Like, so all the porn sites have been mandated in England and I think maybe France, and then certain states in the United States to do age verification. So that drove up the VPN usage like 4,000% in a single month. Um, so there's people trying to avoid that kind of stuff. There's also people that want to watch, sports in their local. Like I have a friend that lives in Copenhagen. He's from San Francisco. He wants to watch sports in San Francisco and watch news in San Francisco. And the only way to do that is through a VPN. Well, those folks have even gotten smarter and they require location services through your browser, which basically is like a hook through your browser that injects a JavaScript piece that has all of the GPS coordinates off of your phone, and it's fed through JavaScript through your web requests. Well, so what I've done is a lot of people might be familiar with the company Zscaler, which is a proxy system to protect. It's like a corporate proxy server that requires you to go through it, and it cleanses your browsing experience so that you're not, either on accident or on purpose stealing documents from the company, leaking information to the internet, or whatever it is that you might be doing wrong. It's to protect from that. So I wrote my own version of that and I included it into the VPN, and you can turn it on or off at will. And what that does is it gives you the ability to modify that JavaScript data that's going through the wire and change it. And you could modify it, and not just JavaScript. It's like the beginning of a lot of things that I'd like to do, because once you are able to decrypt, modify, and then re-encrypt the data for web requests, you can do a lot of really amazing security protection and stuff. So generally speaking, I'm just like, what can I do to help my dad keep from getting ripped off? A lot of that thinking is going into that. So the GPS spoofing, yeah, it's really cool and it does some interesting stuff, but it also, enables me to do other types of security work within that space. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. And I'm curious what some of the useful tech use cases are for, space and defense companies.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So on space, I think VPNs are kind of required because you're over the air immediately with your data. So if you're not encrypting everything you're doing something wrong. So that's just the immediate step. The second piece is you've got a lot of new satellite providers coming on with internet connectivity for the consumer, at least, and being able to tie those together reliably, be able to do packet load balancing across those things. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there. But in general, I think a VPN can enable a company that, say, for example, SpaceX is providing services to foreign nations, and they don't want to have their data going over SpaceX because they don't trust Elon Musk, or they don't trust, the United States government, for example. But using VPN technology and really high level encryption with rotating keys can enable those types of markets, I think. I think that's pretty useful. So there's two versions of what I'm building. The version that I'm building now, from a startup perspective, is consumer, because it doesn't take 3 years to sell a VPN to a person. It takes a while to get into the enterprise market. The enterprise market is very it takes time to cultivate, to build trust, and all that kind of stuff. So the quickest go-to-market plan for me is consumer, but the entire stack can be copied and replicated for all kinds of different industries. You don't need to run this VPN just for consumer. And when you tie all these nodes together through kind of a mesh backbone, that kind of represents I think, kind of the intranet, the way it used to be. You'd have all the field offices, they'd all interconnect through, I don't know what they used to use, like, T1s or uh, fractional networks that are, old school telecom stuff. Well, now you can use a VPN and tie all those places together. But, setting up a VPN concentrator yourself from Fortinet or building those networks and interconnecting them, it's actually quite hard. And then making it reliable, and then making the IP address system all automated is very difficult. And then when you get into the namespace, like creating .docs, like for example, in my VPN for the consumers, there's .docs. You can register whatever you want, domains in there, and you can host in there. But if, say, you're .corp or whatever company you might be, setting up that namespace and getting that installed in all the computers, and also the root certificate authorities and the PKI infrastructure to make all of that cryptography work is difficult. So I could see this having another application at some point in all kinds of different um, industries, aerospace probably. I've worked with GE in the past, and they have their factories here, and then offices over here, and engineers are there, and it's all kind of still tied together through a frame relay or something like that. Like old stuff. So this would be like, okay, you could take consumer internet connections from like Comcast, and then satellite from SpaceX and someone else, and tie it all together as one unified network, even though the infrastructure below is different. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, and as things progress, we're seeing everyone starting to get access to the internet with, Starlink.
Mhm.
It's just being much more available. You see all these new satellites going up, and they're all transmitting data, and that data is going back and forth, and there's going to be servers in space, and it's just going to be a whole new ecosystem, really. I'm curious what your takes are on some of the things that are overlooked or will be in high demand in the near future when it comes to, secure networking.
Yeah, I mean, you got to really just kind of take a step back and just think of it as one big Wi-Fi network, right? And so you're broadcasting your data to a very large area, and then receiving it from a very large area. So it's all wireless communication. And you've are you going to trust that the encryption and technology that's built into those networks is going to protect your data, or are you going to encrypt it prior to that? And being able to do that without a lot of encumbrances and things in the way. And I think encryption is going to be key. The other thing is, the people need to remember that latency is also heavily involved with space. So low orbit, low Earth LEO satellites, I think it's like what, 16,000 miles up and 16,000 miles down, something like that. Or maybe that
Really?
was, yeah, I don't know exactly the distance. It's pretty far. It's like
Right. Like
36,000
five.
mile round trip, I think.
Oh, round.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it takes a while for those packets to move. And speed of light's only so fast. And so anyway, you got some latency issues there. So, gaming and stuff like that is going to be prone to um, it's going to be difficult to enjoy low latency products on those types of networks, I think. Um, Now, where they're going to excel is like high throughput stuff, video, video on demand, all that kind of stuff. But you got to remember the latency there is always going to be there. It's hard to compete with fiber. So the applications are going to have to fit the network, I think, a little bit.
Got it. So what's the business model here? Like, how does Doxxnet make money, and where are you at right now with it?
Yeah, so right now it's free because it's like a hidden link. If you can find it, you can get in there. Mainly because I'm still developing and I don't want to have a lot of users to like deal with. But yeah, it's gonna be a monthly charge per tunnel. First one's free, and then I think that's gonna be between $2 and $7 a month per tunnel. What I found is most users make like 4 or 5 of them, and then I'm gonna charge on an annual basis. But then there's the other set of stuff, which is like, well, um, I have unique IP addresses at each node. I've got a lot of nodes. and I could sell or lease IP space to users so they can have their own dedicated IP space within the VPN. And then that way they're not kind of thrown into the jungle that is, all the toxicity that other users could be doing on the same IP. And so that'll give people, much cleaner network connectivity. So I think there's going to be an upcharge type of thing for that. And there's also a whole the security component to it. I mean, the UI is beautiful. It's like all interactive. It's gorgeous. But doing kind of like a pen test for you through using AI. So a lot of people are very careful about their data. They don't want me to touch it, which is totally understandable. But there's also a certain situation where you do want someone else to touch your data. You want your data to be investigated. You're like, what is my network doing? So you can turn on an investigative AI report, and it'll actually analyze what's going on with you and give you a full report back and say, all right, well, this is what I see here. This is the kinds of devices you have on your network. And then you can turn it off and delete the report if you want. But at least it's like an opportunity for you to like really get a good report as a consumer, what's going on with your phone. Like the phone is a complete black box. You have no idea what it's doing. You turn on a proper VPN with real good reporting, and it's going to tell you you've got 16 trackers running on you. It's got all these different ad ad management crossovers that are, it's just bizarre. Like CNN is terrible. You load CNN, it's like 10,000 trackers are all like pixel trackers and all kinds of things. And then you wonder how you say one thing somewhere and then all of a sudden you get an ad for it. It's all this kind of junk. So a proper VPN should block all of that by default, and mine does. So there's a lot of really beautiful security work to be done, and I think the consumer has been really um, ignored. But also, I think that on the enterprise side, it's also been ignored. VPN is just like a way to get into the network. It's not really a security tool, but it really is. So
Got it. And
yeah.
it's just you making this right now. You're a one-man army. Moving forward, what's that going to look like? Are you going to be raising capital? Like, what do you really need for taking this to the next step? Because as it grows, I'm
Yeah.
sure you might need a little bit of help.
Well, here's the cool part. I'm building this in the post AI era, which means you get to put on the AI goggles and go, okay, do I really need a huge ops team? Do I really need a huge dev team? Can I use agents to do a lot of this work for me? And the answer is yes. So when you start building towards that goal, I don't have a lot of like legacy stuff to deal with. So like if you're a NordVPN or Proton VPN or one of these other VPN companies, they have a huge pile of employees managing all this stuff that probably, they could probably trim that down quite a bit if they had an AI focused development cycle. So there's going to be a point where I feel like I'm developing at the rate of like 15 people by myself. I'm probably going to need to find one or two other people that work as 15 people. Um, Mainly on, I think, iPhone and Android app. On the Android app side, I hate doing that kind of work. It's not my forte. So some employees in that space, probably some ops. Definitely going to need to invest in IP space. So IP addresses have been pretty much exhausted. IPv4 has been sold out, for a while. It used to be free; you could just register and get it, and now there's a market for it. So each one of my nodes, I'm going to need to purchase clean IP space and have an IP space rotation program where I basically like a fouled crop. You have to like kind of let it sit and clean it up and let the land recover. And you have a little bit of that issue with IP space on a VPN. So I've got that whole strategy figured out. So there's probably going to be needing some of that peering management. Also would like to design servers that are tamper proof. So if there is somebody trying to get into one or messing around with something, I could figure it out and the server would self-destruct, stuff like that. So yeah, there's quite a bit of to grow this properly and to make it a big business. I need definitely to raise some funds and put it to work. So yeah,
Are you doing that anytime soon?
I am at the beginning of that right now.
Okay.
Just starting out. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Uh,
definitely going
And
to be doing something soon. Yeah.
yeah, and if everything goes right, like how big is this market? How big is this opportunity you're going after? Seems like, VPNs are kind of common, but this is sort of a new take on it. So what's the future of this market look like?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally the VPN companies have been really boring. The technology is not that great. A lot of them sell security, but they don't. The VPN itself is just an endpoint that you connect to and you exit. Uh, a lot of the technology that they say is security is a bundle. You have to install a bunch of crap on your computer to get security. Um, so yeah, a lot of these VPNs are really kind of like snake oil as far as I'm concerned. The market's 51 billion today. It's growing 22%. There's only a handful of players. There's not a single one in the United States. Not a single one. And it's kind of creepy. So I don't know. I think that there's a really nice market, like kind of exactly what I did with Akamai back in the day. It's like there's a stagnant market. They're not innovating. There's a ton of technology that can be leveraged right now, and the only person that's going to win is the end user. And yeah, and it's a good time to do it. And the market's not getting any smaller. People are getting paranoid. They're scared. They want their data protected. They don't want to be providing their driver's licenses to go to websites, and there's countries blocking people from being able to browse the open web, and there's technologies that can help them with that too. So yeah, there's a lot of really, really good drivers at the moment to do this.
Yeah, and it's consumer focused right now,
Hmm.
for the individual like me or anyone else. But is that going to grow into enterprise? And if so, like who's your ideal customer? Is it like SpaceX? Is it Goldman?
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, I've spoken to folks at Coleman about this. I mean, they have a huge VPN issue. They got like 100,000 VPN sessions internally, and it's all like the other thing you got to realize is a lot of the VPN tech to date is pretty difficult to use. Like IPsec is really hard to use, and managing all of the key space. So, like for example, WireGuard, you have a public and private key, and you have to do a key exchange, and you have to be very careful with the key exchange. And then after the initial handshake and connecting through WireGuard, you have key rotation. So all of that tech, if you can manage that for 1 million users, you can easily fork this off and put it into the enterprise and make everyone's lives easier because this stuff's hard to do. It's really hard.
The whole security space is hard, and it seems like everyone's just trying to be one step ahead of the next, and just a little bit smarter so they can safeguard themselves. And then there's someone coming in trying to be smarter to take something away from them. So I'm curious in this security space, like what's a mistake you see other founders and other companies making, something that's like overlooked, and going forward, same question, like what's going to be uh, vulnerability, I guess you could say. I know with AI things are changing quite a bit, but I'm curious of your take on this.
Well, I mean, in security specifically, it's always been, especially on the enterprise side, it's been terribly designed. Like stuff looks like just hard to use, hard to see. It's slow. So if anything, startups these days should be developing a user experience, a UI for people that is just absolutely like glass, amazing stuff. And if you're not doing that, and all you're doing is focusing on the back end, um, I think you're going to be missing the boat because really, at the end of the day, somebody has to use this stuff. And if it's like looking at spreadsheets all the time, it's just terrible. So that's one thing, just usability for these products in the future need to be much better. And and I think there's another big thing is like I think there's a lot of products that are just very much this like the same. They kind of look like each other and they just price them different. And then it's just kind of like a marketing race to see who can market their product better than the other guy and that kind of stuff. There's no innovation there. That's not innovating. That's actually just kind of trying to outsell somebody. So the other piece is definitely out innovate your competitors. If you can do that, then and you'll stay on the edge, then people will want your products more, I think. So
And right now, is the next step, is this to build and scale fast and get it out to lots of individuals, or are you gonna go deep with a few strategic partners?
I haven't thought that part through. I mean, honestly, I'm a little afraid of getting a lot of users right now, mainly because I've got about 3,000 users at the moment. Somehow they found this link and they signed up and they started using the product. Um, but yeah, I mean, as a one-man band that's still developing, I need capital to survive, a million users, or else I'm just going to be on like when I started Prolexic, I had no customer service or support, and so I went to sleep with the phone under my pillow, and when my clients would call, I'd like wake up and have to answer it as if I was a customer service rep. And I don't want to relive that. So I have to get some policies and procedures and support and ticketing and that kind of stuff all lined up really well before I really go full out with this thing. So,
Yeah. Um,
or else I'm going to die.
you mentioned earlier how, there's none of these companies in the United States, and it got me thinking, how do companies like this deal with maybe some bad actors using it? Like, could the FBI knock on your door, and
Yeah, I mean, there
how
is
does that work?
definitely it's difficult, right? First of all, you want freedom of speech and you want security and you want people to behave, but there's always a bad actor. There's always somebody who's going to do something bad, and I don't want to be involved in that. So there's a careful balance. I think no matter what, these companies have servers in the United States, and so if the U.S. government says your NordVPN, and well, here's the weird part. I was looking at the code for one of the big firewalls for the Great Firewall of China recently that got dumped in my front door. And there's this whole bunch of code for detecting VPNs, each different company's in there. The one that wasn't in there was NordVPN, which I thought was kind of weird. Like, why is that one not even in the code base for detecting and blocking it? So anyway, I guess there's probably deals that people make between different countries and different things to make it copacetic. I mean, all these companies have servers in the United States, so if the United States needed to subpoena them, they could take the server if they want. That's not going to change. If you're a US-based company or you're based in Panama, it doesn't matter. Um, I think there's actually a great thing about being a US-based VPN is that you can trust that the US law will protect you if you're using it. It's the US law. A lot of people can look down on it, but I think that's a great thing. Um, there's other things that I'd like to do. I mean, for example, if I had the funds, I would definitely incorporate uh, each node as its own local jurisdiction. So, the node in Zurich would be under a Zurich corporation. So then your corporate veil is basically isolated to these different locations instead of being kind of subject to one specific law. So there's ways to isolate and protect users that way. But if somebody did something just heinous, I would work with with you know the law enforcement and make sure that that doesn't continue. Um, but otherwise, hands off. But the balance is difficult, and it's going to take a while to figure that out.
Gotcha. I see a question from the audience, and audience, feel free to write in your questions in the Q&A. Do you face legal issues in the US and elsewhere? Kind of went over that.
You know, I you're always going to be you're an internet basically as a VPN, you're an internet service provider. So it's no real different than that. If you've ever run or looked at the Onion Network Tor, um, if you run an exit node, you're going to get subpoenaed constantly. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of legal issues like that come up. So I've decided to kind of treat it similar to the way Google does, which is you publish reports on those requests. The ones that aren't national secrets, allow them to be published publicly, and let users know what's going on with Leo at least, and kind of not make it a secret. One of the things I used to do is host my own email server for a long, 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 long time. So I know who's trying to pry on my information. If I get a subpoena for an email, I would know who is asking for that, and not necessarily my personal email, but like Prolexic, for example. I had thousands of users. Almost every bank in the world uses it. I want to know, like, if you run your email on Gmail, you really don't know who's coming to knock at your front door. So there's going to be a lot of that, and I'd like to be able to leverage that to the clients or my customers so they know it's very transparent. Here's what's happening. I think that's really key. So but there's a balance.
Gotcha. You as a serial entrepreneur, you've done these things numerous times. I was hoping you could just break it down nice and simple all in one place. 'Cause you've talked about your multiple past experiences. Like, how many companies have you really founded? Did they exit? For how much, if you can say? Like, did it take a long time? Did you have a big team? Or is this kind of like a repeated process of you kind of solo doing it, growing
This
it,
is a
scaling it?
new thing for me doing it solo. I find it very freeing because I no longer have to hear people say no. I'm like, all right, we're gonna do this, and it's just me dealing with it. And so, yeah, what I found it like along the formula used to be um, found the company, raise around, hire a handful of folks, and then get to the product and revenue as fast as possible. The problem with that though is you burn through a lot of capital just getting to the first part, and then so right now the only capital I'm burning is my time. I'm not getting paid, and the network that I built, which I'm paying out of pocket. Um, so, but I can run this business kind of indefinitely. So there's no reason to like um, get into a point where I feel like there's like the runway is going to end because it won't, which is really cool. So I have a lot of freedom from that perspective. Um, some of the other businesses, so like, for example, DefenseNet, from founding the company and funding it to exit, I think it was like 18 months. And that was a good exit. We did really well. Everyone was very happy with that. Prolexic, I think the first exit we had probably took 7 years. And I think the big exit was like 10 or 12. So some of those bigger enterprise plays take a while to get through. But when you build new technology and there's big companies out there that want it, acquisitions happen. So it's just kind of works like that. Especially when you're going from like DefenseNet, when we sold it to F5, F5 had no cloud services at all. They sold load balancers. So they came to us and they're like, how do we build a cloud thing? And we're like, oh, well, that's just what we do. We can help you with that. So, in that scenario, I think it was kind of unique. But yeah, I mean, each exit's a little different. Every company's a little different, but it's really fun for me to be doing this alone at the moment. I really enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Got it.
No one telling me I'm crazy. I could just do it.
Yeah, and that makes me think, what kind of investor do you want in your corner, like that provides service beyond capital? Like, what are you looking for when you do raise money?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, a great investor is worth more than the money, and having a good board, proper, I'm working with some investors now and just getting the best advice. It's like, well, the big question is, well, I could release the VPN on IPv6, and that would be cool, but is that going to create revenue? What's the cost analysis of my time versus what I could be doing on other features that other might, actually generate more revenue? And so having that kind of discussion and discord is really important to me. So having just really great advice and guidance on a board, I think, is like kind of crucial. So, and that's what seasoned investors should be able to bring, some of that healthy intelligence to the table.
Gotcha. And what's the long-term vision for Doxnet? Like, what does success look like 5 years from now?
Ooh, 5 years? I don't know. Minimum 10% of that market. I
Over
would,
5 billion, yeah? Or
yeah,
it's
that
gonna
would be
grow
nice.
quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, these businesses print cash when they're working right. So, I would like to see that. But the big picture for me, long term, is if the business can print enough money to help me develop new future protocols and better VPN technology, better encryption. So, you know, if it ever gets to the point where there's an R&D wing and we can do really cool development work that also benefits the product, but also benefits humanity, I think that would be where I'd like to see things go long term.
Uh, um, as I think of more questions, because this is quite interesting, I thought of the question, what are some questions that you wish investors were asking you more often?
Ooh. Well, I haven't really gotten to a lot of investors yet, so I haven't really gotten to that point. You know, I do have, you know, questions of like scale. So, for example, is there going to be a point where I've got questions about myself, like how many nodes do I need to be successful? Do I need nodes in every country? I don't know. And what does that cost? Is there a cost for that deployment just to get to the, you know, to the playing field with the other big VPN companies? That's a question I haven't answered yet. What keeps me up at night? I don't know, some really bad legislation. But you know, maybe that's why there's no companies in the US. I don't know. I really enjoy that. I think there's like the big question is like support. I haven't had a lot of questions about how I'm going to support it, but there's this really brilliant thing called agentic AI, and it does really cool stuff for support. Now, I don't mean customer support, but I mean managing and monitoring a big complicated network is more AI driven, I think. But customer support's a little different. I hate talking to a bot.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
So what's the plan for the next 6 months? Is it still just you by yourself in a room coding away?
I mean, yeah, I need to raise some money. I need to hire some people and start managing a team. I'm. This is going to be probably the second company where I'm going to be a C-level executive and still write code. And I think that's my takeaway. I think is that's crucial for startups. If your founders aren't writing code, then they're dependent on other people to follow their vision. And if you can't show people, even if you're not a very good programmer, but you can show a framework of how you think things are laid out, and other people can follow that framework on code and in software, then you're going to get so much further. And you know, I've had things like in the past where I was a developer at Prolexic and developer at BitGravity and a developer at DefenseNet. And I found situations where I could think of something and I would just kill myself to get that answer done right. And even if my code wasn't the best, it still worked. And it would teach a team of 20 other people how to get to this point where you're trying to go. And I think that's really, really critical. So something to think about with in early stage startups. If your C-level executives can't write code, then that's not good.
Yeah, agreed. Well, is there anything you'd like to say to this audience of investors before we start wrapping things up?
No, I mean, just I'm really passionate about this. This is going to be my future, and I'm really excited. And just thanks for even listening to me today, guys. I really appreciate it. And um, you know where to find me.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
And
about
when
it.
when can I expect to start seeing everyone talk about Doxxnet or being able to find the link?
I don't know. Yeah, you know that 6 month thing you mentioned sounds about right. I kind of want to ease into this because once you start getting a deluge of users, then you're dealing with legacy network stuff. And if you want to do rapid development, rapid updates, and rapid changes, users aren't going to enjoy that. So I think I need to get, I'm getting to a level of where I like the network to be. But I think what I'm going to do in the future is launch like, you know, version one. And then version two will be something you can migrate to, and we'll just let version one run until it kind of is exhausted itself. And so that way you can constantly do the rapid development cycles and then something like that. So I got to get version one to the point where I'm feeling like it's a masterpiece and it's ready to go. So that 6 months sounds about right.
Awesome. All right. Well, Barrett, super interesting stuff. You've had an amazing career, crazy
Thank you.
interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with all of us. And I'd like to thank the audience as well. Thank you so much for coming into this and learning about Doxxnet.
Yeah, thanks guys. I really appreciate your time, and I think everybody's gonna have a great weekend. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.